Well friends, today we discover together the Sancak SVT 11.95 Flybridge, a boat with an overall length of 13.50 meters and a width of 4.20 meters. We will now take a walk on board to discover the setup, but you, as always, remember to leave a like on this video and comment with your opinion. Let's check it out together. At the stern, there is a single large platform installed on the transom. Look here, it is truly immense, thanks to the motorization provided by the two 420 horsepower Cummins engines, which therefore allows you to have a real stern platform. Look at how much space there is here. It occupies the entire width of the boat, with also the possibility of installing a removable external lounge with two chairs and a table, but there is still plenty of space in the rear area. Furthermore, here we notice the presence of the climbing ladder. The climbing ladder has integrated handles to facilitate exit from the water, but upon request it is also possible to install a retractable one, or install another on the opposite side, since the shipyard leaves a lot of space for customization. A little further on we find the first kitchen. I'm talking about first kitchen because in this case a grill plate with support cutting board has been installed, but the layout, as I was telling you, is totally customizable. Furthermore, we can choose to have an outboard engine, and in that case the stern layout changes slightly because we have a very large sunbathing compartment that contains the engines inside. In this way it is true that we have external engines, but we can also fully preserve the swim platform, so the onboard experience is fully preserved. A little further on we find a comfortable grab handle installed on the side profile. At the bottom there is the socket for the battery charger, while here there is the shower for rinsing the stern area with the relative mixer. So let's get on board. The entrance in this layout sees a double mirrored corridor. The rod holder is also located here if we want to use the boat in fishing mode, but upon request we can also modify the layout and have an L-shaped sofa here. So sacrifice this corridor and only have one on the starboard side. On the sides there is no lack of space for storage with this double cabinet, very comfortable, with integrated cup holders. In this way we can experience the entire stern area in a totally independent way. This is because there is also the external kitchen, so we can transform the boat into party mode and therefore fully experience the rear area. Here too, two cup holders and another recess on the upper portion to be able to use it as a storage compartment. In this layout we find the linear stern sofa, very comfortable, with a fixed backrest and storage inside. In this way the storage space is expanded. A little further on there is the table, which can fold down the two side flaps to double its extension. You see. And here too we find the cup holders and the grab handle. Also the central space, very convenient, where you can place bottles and drinks and keep them fresh if you want to add ice, and a convenient storage drawer at the bottom. Optionally, we can also request to raise and lower the table, and with the addition of a cushion, have a rear sun deck, well covered by the Flybridge, which we will see later. Furthermore, below the walking surface we find the engine room. There is a first quick inspection hatch, but we can also electrically lift the entire tailgate and therefore access the interior for any inspection and maintenance. So let's go inside. You see there is the dedicated entrance with a sliding door, which therefore gives us direct continuity between the inside of the cabin and the outside of the cockpit. We see that immediately in front of us there is an L-shaped kitchen. Kitchen with sink positioned here on the right side and hob on the left. But obviously, as I was telling you, the layout designed by the designer Liberty is totally customizable. We can choose the configuration we prefer. Even the layout, the colors, or even the type of furnishings can be totally replaced according to needs. In this case we find a gas hob with 3 independent burners, but we can also have induction plates. Below, the kitchen block is completed by the refrigerator here on the left. There is another one on the starboard side. And we also have drawers and hatches with shelves that can slide out and therefore also optimize the storage space. So in this way all objects have their own place on board, also taking advantage of the upper wall units installed on both sides. Proceeding inside, we are immediately struck by the large windows that allow full brightness inside the cabin. There is obviously also the possibility of opening the windows here to have full air circulation, but air conditioning is also available. Here below we find the oven on the starboard side. A little further on there is the ice maker, while here the shipyard has obtained a very comfortable compartment where the coffee machine can be housed. so we can have any type of comfort on board. We then arrive in the internal dinette. Dinette with C-shaped sofa, very comfortable, also with fixed backrests and possibility of raising and lowering the table manually. Obviously, on request, we can choose to have an electric piston. In this way, we continue to customize the layout. The command station features a single, very comfortable armchair with adjustable bolster. In this way, we can choose whether to steer in standard mode or to be able to support our back in this other configuration. And when I stand at the helm, I see that the steering wheel is easily reachable in front of me. I have no problems with my knees taking up space, but I can, however, adjust it in height. In this way, each person chooses the rudder configuration they prefer. I can also put my feet on the bottom step. The double power throttle is on the starboard side, and the rest of the bridge is totally customizable on request, with a Raymarine display, in this case central, windlass on the left side, and double dial supplied with the engines. Here you also see the presence of onboard home automation, which therefore allows you to quickly control the main utilities, but we can also choose to monitor it via our smartphone or via a tablet. There is obviously the panel of on-off switches, which therefore allows you to manage them should there also be faults in the main system. On the horizontal plane, however, there are the controllers for the double thruster, bow thruster and stern thruster, the hydro tabs for the trim tabs, and here there is a very convenient wireless charger for the induction. At the top there is the well-recessed compass, and look at the visibility. Outside the pillars, it allows us to have full control of the navigation, because as I was telling you, there are large windows, which therefore allow us to monitor the navigation in any condition. There is also this convenient side door, which allows you to exit quickly, to let the captain move in case of emergency, or even to help the crew during the maneuvering phases. Because here, but we will see it in a moment, along the corridor, there is the predisposition for the insertion of mooring tools, such as in this case, the boat hook, and the relative cleat to be able to temporarily moor the boat. Behind the driving seat, we find the switches of the main utilities for the electrical panel. And speaking of electrical utilities, we can choose to literally overturn the driving seat to be able to quickly access the main onboard systems. In this way, you can intervene quickly in the event of a fault and have everything under control. Here we also note the presence of the television, which can also be adjusted according to various angles, but as I was telling you, and as I will tell you as we continue with the onboard presentation, the layout is totally customizable according to needs. We move inside the cabin. Here we find an additional storage compartment, very convenient, where we can leave objects within easy reach, and we enter inside. Entrance with central corridor, you see, comfortable and rather easy. With 3 steps that reduce the difference in height, because look at that depth. There is a first central hallway from which we can choose to access all the internal areas of the boat. Let us start from the left cabin, guest cabin with a very comfortable layout, because we find a double bed for 2 people, but it is located below the deck level. The shipyard therefore chose not to equip the upper sofa with lockers in order to have greater internal height. Look here, there is a lot of livable space. I will also show you the height. I can stand completely even if we are in the guest cabin. There is only this portion here, which obviously gives space to the walking surface, but in any case the cabin is totally livable and usable. Look at all the space here. So it is very convenient for having 2 guests on board and further facilitating their cruise experience. There is also the presence of the very large window to give greater brightness and have a magnificent sea view, with obviously the relative porthole, the socket for the 220 inserted there in the corner, and finally the relative cabinet, where you can store your clothing so you can have a cabin totally independent. At the bottom there is an additional storage cabinet, and there you see there is the possibility of communicating with the cabin next door, but I will explain it to you immediately when you enter inside. The starboard cabin is also dedicated to guests, but since the control station is above it, we don't have the same height as the opposite cabin, but there is still good internal livability. You see, I just have to lower myself to my knees, but when I'm sitting I can stand almost completely. Obviously, when I'm lying down I have no problem. But we can also choose to remove this side bulkhead and obtain a single very spacious communicating cabin. Because, as I was telling you, there is a lot of space for customizing the layout. Obviously here too we find the glass window and the porthole with relative cabinets to store clothes. Let's go back towards the outside, because on the right end there is the bathroom dedicated to guests. You see, upon entering we find the toilet positioned along the side. Here too there is the glass window with porthole, the sink along the bow. Here there is the extractable hand shower, but we can also choose to have the siphon, which is extracted here from the tap. Towel holder support and drain grate for showering. Obviously here too the height is totally preserved. So very comfortable and very spacious for a boat measuring 13.5 meters overall. And above all, look at the configuration of the wood. The woods are treated to be totally water repellent, so we have no problems taking a shower. Here too, there is no shortage of cabinets and supports where you can store all the objects and therefore prevent them from falling during navigation, so as to keep the bathroom perfectly tidy. We return to the central hallway and access the owner's cabin. Owner's cabin positioned centrally in the bow. Immediately in front of us we find the rather generous double bed. Lots of shelves and supports to store all the objects. You see, there are wall units at the top, 2 side wardrobes with coat hangers, windows with portholes on both sides, and a manhole at the top, which therefore allows for excellent air circulation. And here too you see height totally preserved. Truly excellent, perfectly livable and usable. There is also the possibility of raising the bed and having additional internal storage space. I also show you here the presence of various internal storage compartments with relative cup holders and stemware holders to enjoy a 360-degree luxury experience, with a separate stereo in the bow to be able to listen to music independently from the rest of the boat. We then enter the master bathroom. This is the main bathroom, so we see immediately in front of us in the corner the sink, the toilet installed towards the stern, a comfortable support where you can sit and also take a shower while sitting. Look at the shower here. Literally home shower, so we can have an experience as if we were in a hotel. You see, there are also different ways to use the shower, with also obviously the extractable shower head and the mixer to control the temperature. Here there is an additional towel holder support and, as I was telling you, wall units and furniture where you can leave all the objects inside. I also show you the internal height. Here too you see it is perfectly livable. I don't have any problems with width either because I can move easily to any point in the bathroom. So we have a boat measuring 13.5 meters overall with an internal layout with 3 cabins and 2 bathrooms, therefore also excellent from a cruise and charter perspective, which can optionally become 2 cabins and 2 related bathrooms. But now let's go back outside and I'll show you the Flybridge, the double gangways and obviously the bow. You see, I could also choose to pass on the starboard gangway thanks to the door we saw just now for the captain, since the rudder can be adjusted to different levels and therefore have more space for movement outside. But I'll show you also the double symmetrical gangways so we have no movement problems on board. There is a first step to reduce the difference in height, and look at the height of the wall, which reaches well beyond my side, so we are always well protected at any point on the boat. The gangway remains constant across its width. Here we also find the grate with the drain scuppers to let the washing water flow. And you see, I have no problems with movement on board. Where the bulwark is lowered, the guardrail comes to our aid. Also look at the thickness of the steel, which allows us to have a firm grip. As I was telling you, we are always well protected, with a recess inside the walls, where we can quickly store objects, which therefore come to our aid in any maneuvering condition. We then move along the gangway. Here we find 2 steps to give more space inside the cabins. Look, here there is the other railing that starts in the front portion and gives us full support, because then the walking surface goes up, but we always remain at the same height. Always on the side, therefore well placed inside the boat hallway. The corridor is constant, and we then arrive at the front, where we find a single central sun deck. Very comfortable, with the possibility of raising the front portion of the cushion, and therefore forming a bow sofa with a really good sea view.
davvero niente male.
Obviously, there is the possibility of adding a cushion to cover the manhole. In this layout, we also find the presence of the bow awning, with 4 steel poles, 4 really rather thick, very generous supports, and the awning is perforated. In this way, we can also navigate, leaving the front island perfectly shaded. There are also 4 cup holders installed on the sides of the sun deck. And here, under the front bow, there is the provision for the windlass. Although the anchor is clearly visible here on the bow, and by lifting it, we see that we can see the flow of the chain on the windlass. Furthermore, we can access it not only to inspect the chain itself, but also to monitor the winch motor and carry out ordinary and extraordinary storage operations. Upon request, we can also choose to install a camera. Here we find the navigation lights, obviously on both sides, and the mooring cleats. Look, also quite generous, with, towards the stern, the loading cap of the front water tank. Let's go back towards the stern. I'll show you the contralateral gangway. Here we also notice the presence of the navigation lights. And also look at the bow, with the directional light. Also very convenient for night navigation, and then we access the Flybridge. You see constant and symmetrical corridor. And we return to the cockpit. Here there is the staircase, which has a rather vertical layout with crossed steps, but it is also possible to choose to have a staircase that moves. To have greater freedom of movement, it can slide into a more central position. In this way, access to the fly becomes even easier. In this case, we must position our feet alternately and access it on the Flybridge. Look, the upper portion is really comfortable because there is an entire floor free of obstacles outside the control seat. So we can move easily to any point on the Flybridge and be able to control the boat at 360 degrees. Here we find the presence of a very comfortable double sun deck. But, as I was telling you, the Liberty designer allows us to have a modular layout, because we can even install a jacuzzi here in the rear portion of the Flybridge, or have a hob installed here laterally on the starboard side with a very comfortable linear sofa, obviously with side padding, to support the back. There is no shortage of arches with awnings to shade the entire upper portion. And we then arrive at the command post. Here too, the seat has an adjustable bolster, and when I am sitting, I can see that the rudder is always within easy reach. We have a command station that takes over the main controls from the internal one, with all the switches dedicated mainly to navigation. There is onboard home automation here too, and you can have a dashboard that mirrors the internal one with a larger surface area, because we have a double level, therefore double display for control and having all the accessories integrated here on the Flybridge too. And so, dear friends, this is the Sancak SVT 11.95 with Flybridge setup. As always, if you liked the video, I invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. Leave a like and tag the people you think might be interested. And as always, for all the next videos, see you always here on the C-Team.